this is going to be recorded, so if people want to watch it afterwards, it'll be up online with the slide sets for people to view. So thanks a million to Jean-Paul. I'm not going to hold you, giving you all of his lengthy qualifications, but he's certainly going to be able to give us a lot of information around lean thinking and person-centredness. Jean-Paul currently is the head of the graduate diploma in the Lean Healthcare Centre in UCD. He's come from the Mater where he was the lean manager, and he's a nursing background. So he's supervised over 70 lean projects over a number of years from 22 healthcare institutions, so he's loads of experience to fill us in on today. He's currently a PhD student with the Centre of Person-Centred Practice Research in QMU in Edinburgh, and his research is around Lean Six Sigma and Lean in healthcare, and in particular with reference to person-centred cultures. So without further ado, and a little bit of housekeeping actually, you'll see there is the comments and questions function there, so you can type in there if you have any questions. We will have time at the end to have some questions with Jean-Paul. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Jean-Paul, okay?
Okay, thank you very much, Roisin. Hi everybody. Those of you who have a lean background, you'll know that Six Sigma talks about variables, so one of the variables today obviously was the internet, but it's not working. Thank you, Betty. Some of you know what that means. Forgive me, I'm wearing my glasses today as well. Basically, just to say, first of all, I'm delighted to be here. This presentation is part of ongoing research that I'm carrying out as part of my PhD, but also research I'm carrying out in QMU with Professor Jan Dewing and Dr. Deborah Baldy. And really it's around locating Lean and Six Sigma in person-centred cultures of care. It's based very much on research. It's based on realist reviews and realist evaluation. But in the spirit of person-centred cultures and care, it's going to take the form today of a story. A story, however, that is grounded in research and in fact. I would just say, I suppose, do the Oscar piece first. I have to say no man is an island, so I'm delighted that I'm part of a very good team in QMU of the team there, the students for the International Community of Practice. Obviously part of the amazing team in the Mater, the Transformation Office in the Lean Academy, who I have the pleasure of working with on a daily basis, and obviously the health system teams in UCD. You can see I'm well supported in this research, and it's great to work with them. So I suppose just to contextualize before I start, I suppose around 2012, 2013, when the whole lean journey started in the Mater, before it was ever in those 22 institutions, it was like in the classroom with 10 people. We didn't know if it would work or not, but at that time before we started, when I went to Mary Day, the CEO, who's a huge advocate of lean, obviously, and supporter, both in her role as CEO of the Mater and then later the IHG, and supports me very much on the PhD program. We were very clear that we didn't want lean to be about the technicalities, and we needed to locate the patient and the staff in that. I think that was really important. That's something that from its genesis in the Mater, the lean program, as it's moved into the IHG from the Mater and further now to 22 institutions that we've tried to bring forward. And it's really important to us to locate lean there, otherwise it just becomes a set of tools and methodology rather than a philosophy and a way of being, which it can be, and I'm going to talk about that today. I think it's important that, just a bit of history, that when my colleague Michelle Hardman, Dr. Michelle Hardman, should I say, hello Michelle in Galway over there, when she was hosting a conference in Galway very shortly after she started her lean journey, I went up to the conference to speak on lean. And it was in practice development, and I did articulate at the conference that one of my concerns was that working as a lean black belt at the time, I felt that we could lose the person in the entire, I suppose, technicalities of lean and Six Sigma. And when I was speaking at the conference, the keynote speaker was Jan Dewing, who is Professor Dewing in QMU. And afterwards she came up to me and she said, it was interesting to hear you say that. She had the same concerns about lean, let's work on this. Went back to Mary Day, who obviously knew Jan, and it was all came together really leading to this research. So there is a genesis for it as we move forward. Anyway, I will tell you this is a story. This is a story of three houses. the House of Lean, the House of Six Sigma, and the House of Person-Centredness. For those of you who like Game of Thrones, it's not that graphic. I'm afraid there won't be any violence around the table today, I hope. But really, I'm trying to split them into houses, and each has its own way of being. Each house is powerful in its own way. The House of Lean describes the philosophy underlying the Toyota production system. There's lots of research behind that. Womack and Jones, Kohlberg, Ahern and Wheaton. The House of Six Sigma has its origins in Motorola, where in 1987 it was introduced the company-wide quality improvement methodology. I suppose the House of Person-Centredness has its origins in the concept of personhood, dementia care, Tom Kishwood, which describes the concepts of relationship, the social world, place, and self, who I'm to quote Professor Brendan McCormick. So there are three houses, seem very different, obviously. And this really is the story of how they met. If you look at Frederick Laloux's work on organizational paradigms, identifying person-centered care or culture's impact on organization processes and cultures is, we feel, as part of our research, very important. As ultimately, if you look at Lean Six Sigma, it is about organizational process improvement, and this is where we believe you can locate the person-centered care and Lean Six Sigma in a place where they're likely to interact. And so Sanderson sees person-centered organization as using person-centered practices to deliver shared vision and values. And I suppose the question I'm asking all of you out there today, I'm sure all of you are working in very acute areas, is how can person-centered cultures and person-centered care flourish in a culture of targets and key performance indicators, KPIs? It's a key topic, and the key synergies of Lean Six Sigma and that are what I want to discuss today. So I suppose an example of that, and I will tell a few stories within the story, is I was doing an observational study, I won't name where, but I was following an entire consultant team, and we noticed as we were doing the observational studies that the consultants were walking past seeing patients and giving the best of care, and I have to hand this to all my colleagues. I don't use it for frontline, I don't like it, but all my colleagues working there directly in the co-place of patients. They walked past patients who were in the resus, and then they walked past the patients in majors, and then to minors, and then back to majors, and then over to minors, and then back to majors, and this has gone back and forth. And when I asked, I was wondering why we were doing this, and it was more sort of sequential to go to the patients in majors next. They said that some of the doctors who were on had to be off in time because of the European Working Time Directive. So they're the case of where care is being driven by a metric. Probably not the best sequence you would use, and the patients were all getting the care, but they were getting it in a different sequence, probably how the consultants and the team would like to deliver it, because they were under pressure from the KPI. And all of you who are out there who are working to improve processes, or working with processes, or working with patients, or working with your colleagues, are all under this pressure on a daily basis to perform. And that even goes back to my own student nursing days in the 80s, where you would be told in London, as a student nurse in the 80s in Barnet, in good old Barnet, they would say to you, you know, give the patient individualized patient care. We would do that, that's fine. We'd be working on that, and then you'd be said, okay, you've got to get 10 washes done before 10 o'clock, and then you've got to be onto the drugs. And so, you know, what I'm saying is basically we are always working to keep up. Sometimes we're firefighting. I suppose if we look then at the house of Lean, the beginning of Lean, this slide just illustrates the phases identified by Stone in his work about the incremental development of Lean from its genesis with Toyota going right back to 1918, to its first documentation in 1965, to its introduction in healthcare in the noughties, with early adopters and leaders, Virginia Mason and Teva Care. Lean basically, at the end of the day, is a quality improvement approach that talks about the elimination of waste. And I'm going to talk about language later, but if you read any of the literature on Lean, which still gets me, I have to say, and which is why we need to develop models that talks about waste. It does talk about non-value add. I think we need to get back into value add and non-value add as part of the literature and part of the body. I mean, for me, waste, if you walk into my department back when I was a theatre manager and told me that there's a lot of waste in the department, I would throw you out. No bones about it. So even that language in itself is not person-centered. It talks about value and specifying a way to have value and to sequence activities. And it talks about, you know, achieving value by the application of 5 principles. mapping the value stream, identifying where value lies, creating pulls, seeking continuous improvement, all very laudable things. So that's really the house of lean. It's about speed, it's about efficiency, it's about standardization. If you look then at the evolution of Six Sigma, sorry, my fault. It's quality improvement methodology again that focuses on data and cost. It's data-driven process improvement methodology designed to improve process capability, and capability is a word we really need to be cognizant of here, and enhance process through the introduction of improvement projects, and uses what we call a DMAIC process for this. So again, has nice synergies with Lean. Some people will use just Lean, some people will use just Six Sigma, some people will use Lean, Six Sigma. Personally, I'm a practitioner of Lean and Six Sigma because I think it gives better results. Then if you were to move on to the house of person-centeredness, you could look then at the person-centered timeline. I won't go into it in detail, but like Kitwood in 1997 defined personhood as a standing or status that is bestowed upon one human being by others in the context of a relationship and social being. It implies recognition, trust, and respect. And Jan Dewing claims that the actual concept of personhood can sometimes be difficult to define, but that the term is usually to describe the attributes that make up a person. So within this whole context of process improvement, we're working with people and individuals, whether they're staff or patients or relatives, who are persons. And, Dewing did say, or Jan said that, critics of Kitwood fail to realize that persons exist in the context of their relationship with and to others. So you can see that the three very different methodologies, if you want, or approaches that we're working on. So the House of Lean really has a growing family. So I suppose I would describe them as kissing cousins. Some people in UCD, we use Agile. I'm delighted that the university last year adopted Lean and Six Sigma as its modus operandi, which aligns really to what we're doing within the R&D Hospital Group. Lean is designed again to reduce waste. Agile is designed to execute tasks over a shorter time frame with frequent customer involvement and to be able to make changes quickly. So really they are kissing cousins. Then a lot of you will have worked on the productive ward, which is an offspring of Lean. The productive operating theatre, the TPOC, which is an offspring of Lean. And then I would say there are some dubious characters out there, what I call fake Lean. We can do it for you wholesale, to quote Philip K. Dick's book, and you need to watch out for that as well. Really what happened then after that was then we had this marriage, I suppose, this intermarriage between Lean and Six Sigma. It's very successful and very happy marriage, I believe, where you have your problem solving and improving process giving greater results. Following on from that then, how did process improvers view the union? Well, we know that 50% of black belts, for want of a better word, worldwide in the American Society for Quality will see Lean as quick wins, waste removal, looking at things like cycle time with some statistical analysis and indeed detailed statistical analysis, but it's low-hanging fruit. Some of those are just do it and more rapid improvements. And then 43% of black belts would use predominantly Six Sigma, reducing variability, significant statistical analysis to understand underlying root causes, and higher hanging fruit. My colleague Aileen Iago, who's a black belt on the team between the Mater and Kappa and Clements and Clontarf, worked on a project where over a 2 to 3 year period, that's how long it took, they were able to look at such variation within the system for patients' access to rehab. But it took them that long to look at all of the very significant variation. But they now have that down from a patient wait from about 24 days to about 12 days for access to rehab. So, a long time coming, but worth working on, incremental change and sustainable change. So suppose then you have that marriage, and then there were two, and there's the House of Lean and there's the House of Person-Centredness. But just to say again that the House of Person-Centredness has its own issues. I would refer here to the Person-Centred Practice Framework from McCormick and McCants, most recently updated in 2017, which I suppose for those of us, I was very lucky to complete the HC, I know Roisin was as well, the QI program for a year with QMU and the HSC last year, which really gave me more understanding and really fed into my PhD. And this framework has continued to evolve since its inception in 2006, reviewed again in 2012, and now here we are in 2018 with its most recent iteration. It's used predominantly in practice development settings, and it's multi-professional. And McCormack and McCants describe person-centeredness as, and I will quote them, an approach to practice established through the formation and fostering of healthful relationships between all care providers, service users, and others significant to them in their lives. It is underpinned by values of respect for persons, personhood, individual right to self-determination, mutual respect and understanding. It is enabled by cultures of empowerment that foster continuous approaches to practice development. You can see how often the word respect is coming out here. And they suggest, McCormack and McCants, that every person is involved in the patient's care, not just the patient. And from a staff perspective, it includes skill mix, effective relationships, and shared decision-making. And an interesting metric, which we look at a lot more in our DMAIC projects now, in relation to projects and sustainability of a project, is staff, in relation to, if you're working on a unit which has particularly heavy workload, where the staff are probably short-staffed, where the staff are probably working with no budget and a ceiling, and they're working to deliver optimum care the best they can with what they have. A very key metric to me to measure would be staff retention, as in staff turnover, and staff sick leave and absenteeism. And a project which we recently worked on, the proof of the project was not in the metrics of, oh, we're doing this faster, we're doing this within 6 hours, our metric for this is better. The metric we really were interested in was the staff absenteeism really improved, and the retention of staff and staff turnover on the unit improved. So that's a metric we need to be looking at. And you all know, we work in the area, skill mix is something very important. So that was something we really wanted to look at. And, you know, sometimes we have to be careful that the metric doesn't become the tail wagging the dog, as in that example I gave you of the European Working Time Directive, that, you know, you have to ask yourself, I mean, I do, and I know it's a metric, and I agree it's a metric, the patient experience time, PET, but guys, let's be very clear, it's a metric. PET is a metric. It is not a patient experience. It drives me absolutely crazy when I hear people saying, oh, you know, well, the patient experience time is 4 hours. So we have to ask ourselves the question, and I know we have KPIs to meet, and I know this is national, and I understand that. But if a patient could be in an emergency department for 6 hours and out within 6 hours, and that's fine, and we meet all our KPIs, or if a patient could be there for 6 hours and 15 minutes, but during these 6 hours and 15 minutes, a curtain was pulled, information was given, they were given a half meal, they understood all the care, and they weren't readmitted. Which would be more important to you as a relative and as a patient? And I say that as somebody who's been a patient. I say that as somebody who's been a carer of both a Alzheimer and a stroke, both with my parents, and spent many time in emergency departments, and as somebody who's been a clinician. So I'm saying that hand on heart, and I genuinely believe that. What is more important? We have to be careful that the metric doesn't become the tail wagging the dog, and that's why I'm very interested in Lean and Six Sigma not becoming a stick to hit people over the head with or over the back with, but that it becomes something that is a measure of improvement and that people are involved in. Okay, so then, suppose we go back to the story. In the bid through the House of Person-Centredness, the House of Lean sets out its stall. This looks fantastic. It has up there people-centred. That's fantastic. It's a lovely house. But just to say to you, look online. The House of Person-Centredness is very confused. There are many rooms. In my father's house, there are very many rooms. It says I can get religious there, but I'm not. But the House of Lean has many, many rooms. And this is something we need to be aware of. You know, you can have many hats which suit many people. So, you know, be aware of that when you look at Lean. Having said that, and having spoken to Professor Dewing and to other experts in person-centeredness, they would recognise that there is internationally variation in the approach to person-centred care implementation and innovation, and I cite Brendan McCormack on that. Symbiosis suggests that the further development of a person-centred healthcare system is dependent on writers and practitioners agreeing on definitions of personhood that stress the difference between the concept of personhood and the concept of patienthood. And he further suggests that the lack of agreement of a definition of what constitutes person-centred care leads to an inability for practitioners to differentiate between person-centred care and patient-centred healthcare. And Brendan McCormack has a very good article which I've read, and it said, you know, about patient-centered care or patient-centered care masquerading as person-centered care. So it's great if you're delivering very good care to your patients. It's not so great if you're delivering your very good care to your patients having just, and here's my North Side coming out, taking the head off your staff in a meeting and giving out. And it's very hard for a staff nurse to deliver care at ward level if she's in tears. So, you know, the person-centeredness has to extend to staff and ensure the environment they're working in is important as well. So I think locating person-centeredness is important as well, and there are a lot of doppelgangers out there. Roger Watson and Brendan McCormick did a very good, Professor Roger Watson and Professor Brendan McCormick, should I say, given their proper titles, gave a very good editorial there recently where they spoke about the danger of metrics as well, and that impact of metrics on person-centeredness, and I think that's something we need to be very aware of in process improvements. So I suppose, having said all that, do they need a wedding planner? If we've got the house of Lean and Six Sigma married off, do Lean and Six Sigma need a wedding planner? Is there any chance at all of a match? Well, certainly that's what my research is in and what myself and Jan doing and Deborah Baldy are working on as well. And do they even speak the same language? So, for example, look at Lean there, you know, RIE, JDI, DMAIC, SIPOC, Kano, FMEA, KPI, TAT, waste, output, result, speed, variation, Kanban measure, Kaizen, series, statement, Saisu, Sekaisu, Shitsuku, sounds rude, mission control, data report. Where is the person that? I lecture on Lean. I understand the need for these words. I understand that people have an understanding of these words, but they can be adapted for use. Look at person-centeredness, choice, dignity, respect, purposeful living, values, empower, vision, honest, dignity, compassion, caring, flexible time. You can see why people would wonder, is there any hope of a reconciliation? Somebody said to me, of course Lean is person-centered. I'm saying to you, just because you believe it, it doesn't make it so. It's a very broad assumption. I hate broad statements, I have to be honest, shouldn't use the word hate, not very person-centered, but broad statements do not make things a fact. They have to be based in research. If they're not based in research and lived human experience, I'm talking about qualitative, not just quantitative, well then it's not real to me. So, again, it's just a matter of opinion. This recently did the rounds. It's like that dress that was out there last year. Is this cat coming up the stairs or going down the stairs? Debate took place over it. It's like that dress that was on the internet last year as well. So, you know, everybody has an opinion on where Lean fits. We're trying to actually locate it based on the research. So, basically, I'll leave you to have a look at the cat there. So, contextual factors in which the House of Lean can perform. Engaging staff. We're very, very lucky in, I have to say, in the work I do with the Mater Hospital, that they have fantastic engagement from staff. And I have to say, the greatest part of my job is working with people and seeing people innovate and be given the freedom to innovate, and just, it's amazing. And I have to say, hats off to my colleagues in the Transformation Office and the Lean Academy for the amazing engagement that they get from staff and from clinicians in particular, and to our clinicians across the group who engage as well. Absolutely fantastic, and it's really, really gives very good substantive change, such as looking at the way we do general and internal medicine. Fantastic stuff. Huge big project at the moment going on in relation to cardiothoracics, and the engagement there by everybody is fantastic. The engagement and supported by management. We've been very lucky, I suppose, to have a CEO again in Mary Day, both the Mater and the IHC, who's engaged staff and supported all of our efforts, even coming to say hello to staff as we move forward, always checking in, always seeing how things are going. And Gordon Dunn, the current CEO of the Mater, as well, is very supportive of the project as well. We're really lucky in that regard. So I think that's important. And then if you look at any of the literature, Lean is led by staff who are working with patients and with each other in all environments, clinically and healthcare, and support staff as well. And it has to be supported by senior management as well, though. If it doesn't, it doesn't work. It needs that framework around it. Recognizing the need to change. You know, if you look at the books that are written on Lean, you know, Fillingham says in his book on Lean, based on his experiences, you know, and he went to some of his colleagues who said, we're not Japanese and we don't build cars. This isn't a discussion on Lean per se, it's a discussion on Lean person-centeredness. But, you know, if any of you who've studied Lean will know that it comes from Japanese industry. The context is really important. And I really say it's not a square peg round hole approach, and we have to adapt for local context. An application for context is crucial. As Barry Oshley says, and it is required reading on our graduate diploma, his book, his latest book, Context, Context, Context. We are the most social of creatures, yet we can be blind to how systemic context shapes our lives. It's systemic change we're looking for. We're not looking for, you know, a little pockets of change. And context blindness is very costly. It results in stress, broken relationships, lost opportunities, diminished contributions, and destructive interactions within and across systems. And it gets back into that silo. So really what we're trying to do with Lean is, and it's been very successful, is get people out of the traditional silos. All of the education programs that we deliver and all of the teams I work on are completely interdisciplinary, and that's from consultants, nurses, doctors, electricians, plumbers, you name it, everybody's in parts of the team. And it's really important that everybody, and that really aligns with person-centeredness. But you have to look at it within the context. But really, to bring it back, I suppose, to, and I don't want this to be too theoretical, properly understood and enacted, Lean Six Sigma for person-centered cultures or for person-centered care entails an appreciation of systems. You have to appreciate the system you're working in and the wider system. And this is a key component of Deming's system of profound knowledge. And I really think it brings it all together if you look at it from that point of view. Then we look at, I suppose, recognizing the needs of the person and not just the organization. And this is really important. So it's what the person needs at that moment, at that time, and not just the organization needs. That ties a bit back into what I was saying about not being too driven by the KPIs. Of course we have to perform, but performing at the expense of the person is not the way we want to perform. And I suppose that really means that evaluation should evaluate but not penalize. Of course, there are factors. That's what we call common cause variation and special cause variation. It's very easy to solve special cause variation problems. A very good example of special cause variation would be something, say, 25% of the hospital staff did not turn up for work today. I usually give that example saying, remember back in 2010 when we had 4 foot of snow. I don't have to go that far back now. Look at the staff who made it in during that snow. It was all over the news about staff making the effort to come in, talk about person-centeredness. That was absolutely amazing, people who were coming in then. And they made the effort. So that's something you can deal with because it happens now and again. But common cause variation is stuff that happens every day of the week that you probably cannot control. So you never know what's going to happen next. Because remember, for every patient that comes in, lean industry is not lean healthcare. For every patient that comes in, once they come in that door, they may come in with a UTI, and they may be over 65, and they may be socioeconomic class 5. But they're going to stay in for 100 days. There's nothing to do with the UTI. It's the social circumstances. How you relocate them back to their home or whatever will happen to them next. And so you don't know what variables they come in. And they may have the diabetes, maybe out of control. They may have COPD. There's multiple comorbidities. So, you know, you don't know. Each patient in himself or herself has all the variation inbuilt. No wishful thinking. And I like to call these strategy delusions, and this is what we're looking at. So according to Mark Steiker and Gary Cooper in their recent book, it sounds like I'm some type of bookshop here, but I'm not. These are required reading for our students. Solving the Strategy Delusion is the delusion that employees will invest discretionary extra energies to realize organizational change if they have not been meaningfully engaged and supported in defining the challenges and devising solutions, drawing on their own experience and expertise. So if we're doing it onto employees, if we're not engaging with them, if we're not working with them, if we're not actually using their expertise, well then they're not really going to engage. And Lean Six Sigma and person-centered cultures then recognize the importance of sustained, meaningful employee engagement and development. And of course then there's encourage local entrepreneurs. I think this is really important. There's a three horizons framework that helps people develop future consciousness so that they can discern the future potential in the present moment, complex and messy as it may be. And some of you are probably tuning in from a messy, complex situation as we speak. But Lean Six Sigma and person-centered cultures, I believe, together can encourage people to lift their gaze, to appreciate new possibilities, and to develop their potential to realize them. So, how do we start to bring them together? I just want to show you this slide. I was chatting to Mark Rabbit, a lot of you will know, on Friday, had an interesting conversation. This is a slide from a presentation he gave recently, and this is really very, very interesting to me. This is how, this is a control chart, a lot of you will know, but this is how a control chart can impact on staff. So, you know, we start off with process improvement. It's like, let's do it quickly, let's get it done, and everybody's happy. Then something happens, the variable jumps up, so the second phase is sort of surprise. Then we get it under control, and the next phase is all smiley and happy. Then things start to go downhill again, and staff are frustrated. Now we're winning again, and they're being affirmed by management, and we're wonderful, and we're happy again. And then we go down again, and we're really quite frustrated. So you can see that what is happening is that staff can be very frustrated. So again, we have to be careful not to use the control chart as something to beat people with. If we're doing that, it's not going to work. This next, some of you may have heard of this, really interests me. It's called the Kalahari effect. So we cannot locate our exact whereabouts to an infinite horizon when we are presented with the illusion of progress. So if you're in a desert, and you're going up over a sand dune and down over the next one and up the next one, down the next one, you never really can tell how far. Now, having said that, I haven't spent a lot of time in deserts. I've spent a lot of time on Fijian Islands for 10 weeks, but not in a desert. But, you know, we have the illusion of progress. And we have to be very careful as well that we're doing well, our process improvement is working well, but then, you know, is it sustainable? So we have to go back to that again, to be saying where is our horizon and can we look at it? So, working with Jan and with Debbie, we've been looking at the literature. This is based on an 18-month, actually, to nearly 2-year rapid realist review, and then a far more detailed review of the literature in relation to person-centeredness, Lean, Six Sigma, and Lean Six Sigma. And this, we believe, is our working model or our draft model for where we believe Lean works well. So you have on the left-hand side, I suppose, on my left-hand side, we have respect or Kaizen. Now, the concept of Kaizen in Toyota led to their 2-pillar philosophy. They say it is respect for people that enables continuous improvement. And to me, this is important, as it not only respects people, but recognizes them as moral peers, not only as drones for care delivery. The philosophy of Kaizen, however, may often be lost in the rush to have continuous improvement and in Lean Six Sigma application in healthcare. A return to the value of respect not just for people, but for persons is an important link and an integrative approach to person-centered care and Lean Six Sigma. So very much there's an alignment between the respective Kaizen. So I have to say, one of the big issues I have is the word Kaizen being used for an event. I know it's out there, Kaizen event, but it tends to focus on the more active principles and methods of daily improvement, such as rapid improvement events or Kaizen events, week-long collaborative process events. However, according to Suarez-Barra and a lot of the others in the literature, this focus on the process improvements ignores the understanding of Kaizen as the individual and personal principles which impact on both employee, working and social life. We have a paper currently which will come out on Kaizen and person-centeredness. So if any of you are interested in that, please do today. Let us know, and we definitely circulate to that when it comes out. IMI sees Kaizen in relation to employees having involvement in practices that enable them to incrementally identify and suggest ideas for improvement on an ongoing and sustainable basis. Okay. So I might take a question there at this stage.
No, if you want to continue on, John Paul,
okay.
On to the end, and then we can do the question.
Okay,
great. Time that we have enough time.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well I might keep going and I'll take a couple of questions at the end and that's all right. Okay, yeah. Okay, so there is a need for a Kaizen to embrace employees' viewpoints to a wider extent. Within healthcare organizations, there's a need to develop Kaizen practice, not just with clinical and support staff, but at the management levels. And basically, Kaizen, if we take it right back to the original Japanese, which is what we're trying to do, is to look at the philosophy of harmony and loyalty and consensus in decision-making and employment for life. That's where it came from. We need to go back to that. The second one there you will see then is, if I go clockwise, is voice of the customer. And voice of the customer is very important as well. Lean obviously ascertains voice to customer, and this is basically, for those of you who know, going out asking staff and patients what they think, what they feel, doing focus groups, doing surveys, etc. It's important. However, I will allude, it's not really, it's aligning with person-centeredness, but it's not right there. Empowering staff, if you look at the Lean and Six Sigma literature, it does talk about empowering staff. We are working towards that. Again, we've a way to go on that as well. What is the definition of empowerment? Observational studies. Person-centeredness, really, and I know this most recently, having worked on the program here with Margaret and Lauren in the HSC, is about you know, going out and seeing things, go see, do, go seeing it in practice and having an appreciation for that. Observational studies, or those of you who studied Lean will know, Gemba is a key component of any of the Lean work we do as well. So there's a lot of work there that synergizes there as well. And obviously, Lean, there's a very good IHI paper on Lean and quality improvement. There's differences, but they align very well in Lean, so it's very well with quality. And obviously, at the end of the day, Lean Six Sigma is obviously looking for quality as well as Lean. If you then look to the right-hand side where we think there is divergence, some of the divergence ties into the points I made earlier. So the first divergence will be first principles. So Lean's first principles and the first principles, if you look at that and person-centeredness, are completely different. So Lean's first principles really are looking about, process improvement, are looking about, making things flow. Person-centeredness is about focusing on the person, understanding what person is, the sense of person. So there's big differences there, which we would need to bridge in developing this model further. Value, the concept of value is very different in Lean and person-centeredness. Values we talk about in person-centered work and people's values and beliefs. The value really that we're talking about in Lean, if you look at it in a purest point of view, is looking about the value that's inherent in the process. Now that does take in the voice of the customer, but there are differences again there that need to be bridged. And then when you look at the voice of the customer does engage patients, it does have focus groups, it does, do rapid improvements and ask people what they think and do point of use, point prevalence studies and group on wards and stuff like that. That's all very good, but unless that's experienced and it's incremental change and you have evidence base for that over a period of time and there's collaboration, well then it's not really aligned. And that's something else we need to bridge. Now, when we say divergence, we believe these divergences will be brought together, and that's a lot of the work we're doing. We welcome anybody who wants to work with us on that moving forward. The language I've already spoken about, really a lot of the Lean language is not person-centered. We have to be careful. I'm not just talking about the acronyms like FIPOC and stuff like that. I'm talking about how we use it. Anything like, control, even the DMAIC, the control phase, I understand we need to have that. We could look at developing a model that didn't have that. We could also look at, like stuff like command, don't like the word, mission control, anything like that. It's not language that really, we're not natural. Standardization. Standardization is very, very important. We agree that you can have standardization. However, blanket standardization does not work, obviously. Again, going back to context. In any hospital, specialties, surgery and medicine are going to have a certain amount of standardization, but you cannot expect to have a blanket standardization. So it's working on that as well. So, we have to take the machine part, I suppose, more industry-driven Lean and try and refine it further to have a more, sustainable model of Lean healthcare. And that, again, is what we're working towards. Having looked at that then, where do I locate this currently? Where do myself and Jan and Debbie locate this currently? We locate this currently in this model of Jan Dewing and Brendan McCormick from 2017, which looks at, patterns and where you could locate Lean in this model. And there's compliance, there's service improvement, and there's innovation, and we certainly believe at the moment that service improvement has patterns, has moments, I suppose, of person-centeredness in the compliance issue. If we make it purely compliant, all you will ever have, and I think this model is fantastic, all you will ever have are person-centered moments. For service improvement really to work, it has to be in a thriving environment, going back to what I spoke about there earlier, where you'll have person-centered patterns. And these person-centered patterns will come more from the staff empowerment, from, the context, being aware of context, not the square peg round hole, allowing people to thrive, giving people the time to assimilate. If we're going to treat Lean and Six Sigma as toolkits, it's not going to work. If we're going to empower people, educate them, let them develop Lean and Six Sigma for the context in which they work, and in person-centered way, I suppose, then it will work. It's essential. We have on all of our programs there, we have the work of Julie McCormick-McCants as part of our reading list. I think it's important that people can locate it for themselves moving forward. So this is definitely where we would see Lean at the moment, moving between the person-centered moments, if you look at it from a purely service point of view, to moving towards person-centered patterns. We want to make sure we don't move back to the left in this, and we want to be moving towards the right-hand side. So basically, what are we doing? Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a new house, and I suppose that model of person-centered process improvement. When I say process improvement, I'm specifically referring to Lean Six Sigma, because obviously that's my area of expertise, but something that will work for people. We know there's lots of people working in areas where they were working in person-centered environments and then Lean arrives. So basically, we want to align these as best we can. There's always going to be divergence, I believe, but it's how you get a model that will work for people who are busy, but who want to improve, but who don't want to be improving with a model that actually doesn't work for them in a person-centered way. Just to say, I'll just pop that up there, it's in the slides anyway. As I say, all of those people I spoke about today, Oshri, Deming, Geran, all of those are all on our reading list as well, but very importantly, since I started in QMU, we will be very clear as well that the person-centered writers such as McCants, Dewing, McCormack are all up there as well, because we need to locate it. And that's just the pathway if any of you are interested in working with us. Again, you're very welcome. Welcome your questions and welcome your collaboration with us moving forward. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Jean-Paul. We have a very active chat box here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we're not finished just yet. So thanks a million for everyone for participating, and we'll just come down through some of the comments here, just making sure I'm not missing anything. So we have quite a few bits here.
Oh, good Lord, okay.
So Una Cunningham is saying that targets lack of performance judgment as opposed to measuring for improvement. While they have their place, we need to be mindful of this. That's just reaffirming your point from earlier there. Yeah. Thanks, Una. Just coming on down, then actually Edu has asked around some of the links. What we might do when we put this up on the QI Talk Time webpage afterwards, we might put in some of the links into the end of the slide so that people can see some of the documents and references that you allude to, so that they can get access to those. So what is the difference between Lean, Agile, and Lean Six Sigma? That was
so I sort of alluded to that. So basically, Lean, Agile, Lean Six Sigma is, I suppose, more about the alignment of speed and variation. So Lean is really about speed or time. Six Sigma is about variation, and Agile then is about designing solutions quite fast. But Lean and Agile really, as I called them earlier, I wasn't joking, are like kissing cousins. They work very well to use Agile and ECD as well across the university. So you can use any really in a combination, and they work well together.
Great, thanks a million. Michelle Hardiman is asking, would it be helpful to change the focus and language of KPIs and use them as indication of standards used as an opportunity for critical discussion?
Absolutely agree. Michelle, hi Michelle, I'm delighted you're there. Michelle, my old colleague and friend, but she's absolutely right, and I agree with you, that would be very helpful. I think the whole, and you understand where I'm coming from, the whole thing of the KPI, the yardstick, it can sometimes be driving people, and when I say driving, it's not what word we ever want, so I completely agree with you there, it'd be very helpful, yeah.
And Heather Cozy has also illustrated that fact by saying she completely agrees as well. We have an onus to ensure that efficiencies do not lose sight of the quality of care given. Time is a metric but cannot capture full quality of care.
Absolutely, yeah. Time is only one metric. Going back to that metric I spoke about earlier with the, sick leave and absenteeism and the staff retention, that was a really powerful metric to look at in the project. When you saw that improving, you could say to the CEO and you could say to staff, there's an improvement. The people actually have gone from not wanting to work on the unit to actually want to work on the unit. That speaks for itself. That's the measure we need to look at, I think, yeah.
And Edu's commenting again, which is really the crux of the problem, is how do we navigate a system that values the number as opposed to the quality?
So I'd say I agree with you, but a system is only as good as the people. A system, if you look at it systematically, a system is the people. And if the people in it are thinking from a person-centered point of view, have, I wouldn't call it education, but have experience of person-centeredness, have experience of locating process improvements in person-centered. This is why I'm so passionate. A lot of people know I'm very passionate about lean, but I'm even more passionate about locating it in person-centered so it doesn't become this big stick that beats people, and this is the problem. So I think it's about the staff on the ground, it's about the people, and they are the system. The system is nothing without people, they're parts of the whole.
Great, and we just had someone asking for the references, which we've alluded to.
No problem,
already.
yeah, absolutely.
Michael Woods has asked about how you've talked about different contexts. Surely lean is lean whatever the context.
Okay, that's a great question, actually. Thanks, Michael. But it isn't actually. So you might say lean is lean. So for a very good example of that would be, I was working with a hospital, a couple of hospitals together, and we were all together. We're having like a workshop in one hospital, said to the other hospital, why don't you just get your porting staff to do that? And the staff, we don't have that grade in our hospital. We don't have that grade. And I thought it was really interesting because there's an assumption that, oh, all the therapists push the patients to their therapy, or the patients are in wheelchairs and they push them because we don't have a portion grade. So there's an assumption that people have something you haven't got. For example, even looking at projects, I know nationwide, say for example, the NTPF will be looking at improvement projects nationwide in relation to scheduled care. Some hospitals are saying, we don't have an IT department at all. So you're talking about get your IT department to. So like the context is completely different. And you know, sometimes that does sort of bother me. People say, oh, lean works forever, whatever the context. People say, oh, you know, we've done this in this country or that country and it'll work the exact same. No, there's an Irish context for everything. Just because, you know, they do it in the States or they do it in the UK, we have to adapt it for local use and for context. We can't just bring it over and say one square peg fits all. If that's what we're doing, well, that's not going to work. We need to look at the context in which we're using it and the people in the context in which we're using it as well.
Great, thanks a million. Kieran McDonald has asked, if you define the value in lean, is that bringing you closer to person-centeredness?
Well, thanks, Kieran. That's going back to the defining what value is. So we have to be careful. I would agree with you. The value in lean, to me, is the cultural change that it brings about. And I can say that for all of the people I've worked with, it's been an absolute pleasure working with them. Like 2,000 people now have gone through our programs, and it's been fantastic working with them. But the value for me is in seeing them change and the change that happens in them as individuals. And you know, the value in lean, Kieran, is I suppose we need to be careful at what we're trying to define, going back to what I said about what person-centeredness says is value and what lean says is value are two different things. So yes, we can certainly look for more than the value statement, the value proposition, the value stream. They're all phrases. We need to be looking at what's valuable to the people involved in it.
Great. And one last question here from online. So Mario Shea has said lean terminology needs to be demystified. If you were to read about the methodology without the benefit of talking to an experienced practitioner, you'd be quite lost and perhaps dissuaded from applying it.
Absolutely, completely agree. But actually, having said that, I'm not choosing UCD coordinator, but when you look at the programs that the Lean Academy and UCD run, we've developed them since 2013. And we're exactly moving towards that, trying to remove this language and working with my colleagues as well in QMU, trying to look at what we can do to make a more, I suppose, person-centered, approach to lean. It won't be a person-centered model of lean because person-centered is person-centered, but to develop a more person-centered approach to lean. But I agree with you. You'd nearly need, and I know this from writing articles where I've had to do the what you call the bibliography, you know, the list that tells you, I can't think of anything, a blank, tells you what everything is, what all the acronyms stand for, you know.
Glossary.
A glossary, exactly, yeah. So you're absolutely right, Mary, I agree with you totally, yeah.
We have a few people in the room here as well. We might just do a quick hello. So we have a few other people in the room here. So just we'll have time just for one more question. We have a question here which I think is really interesting. Jean-Paul, would you mind commenting some more on the marriage of reducing variability of the Six Sigma and recognizing variability of person-centeredness?
So in relation to Six Sigma is really looking at trying to remove the variation in processes that could lead to the lean, I suppose, waste and downtime. There is variation as well, I suppose, and I think that was really important, that what Brendan and Jan were saying in their editorial there in the Jan, no pun intended, was that there is variation in what people call person-centeredness. We have to be very careful that we we have an understanding of what person-centeredness is as well, and that we are all singing from the same hymn sheet. You talk about patient-centered nursing, talk about people-centered nursing, or people-centeredness, I was wrong to say nursing, patient-centeredness, people-centeredness, client-centeredness. Look across the literature, there's all different points. We have to have some, in order to align lean with a person-centeredness, we have to ensure we're aligning it with something that is universal as well, that's agreed. And I think that's great, being aligned, for me, being aligned with QMU, and certainly after the immersion in the program, immersion doesn't sound very hard, immersion, but actually it is immersion in the program. It gives you a greater understanding of it. And I think that's where you need to make sure that you're not getting rid of variability in one, only to align it to something else that has like a smorgasbord. Because there is a danger that, you know, all things to all people, lean can be smorgasbord. And like if you go to, I know this myself, if you go to a lean consultant to say, oh yeah, we can do that for you, lean can do all that, lean can do everything, but it's not a magic wand. And if I say nothing else today to you, lean is not a panacea for all ills. It's not going to solve everybody's problems. It's not going to sort out health errors, but what it is going to do is it's going to give people tools to try and improve the processes. And what I'm saying really is, if we can do that in a person-centered way, that will be really fantastic, I think.
Oh, that's a great way to end a fantastic talk. There's lots of really fabulous comments here saying how much people enjoyed it.
Well,
and I'd like to agree with Mary Fitzpatrick, who's saying, John Paul, your enthusiasm is infectious. So thank you for that, Mary. I think that's...
They've all got it, Mary. They've all got it.
Yeah. So, look, I think we've just really scratched the surface today, haven't we? There might be another QI talk time coming up on this to delve further into it, if you're willing. But just to thank you again, John Paul, for your time and offering up to do this QI talk time with us. Just, we will have the slide set and the recording up online available for you after if you go onto qualityimprovement.ie. There's a QI talk time webpage, and we'll add in the links as we discussed. Just some other links there for the knowledge and skills guide and the framework for improving quality. We also run our webinars normally every 2 weeks, but it's an exceptional circumstance. We're running one next Tuesday from the NRH, live from the NRH, on the daily operational safety huddle. We're having a celebration event there on quality improvement work that we're joining up, partnering with them from the quality improvement division. So if you can join, great. So hopefully we'll talk to you all again, and thanks for your patience with the internet earlier. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.